Johnny and I were talking during the break that one of the biggest details about the 2020 election that I don't think gets enough attention is the fact that it was boring. That really everything that happened in the 2020 election, as much as the right wing and the Trumpers and the maggots want to make a huge deal out of it, was really perfunctory, normal stuff. It was Trump won some swing states because of some progressives who held their nose because they didn't like Hillary because she's apparently a warmonger, and that they like the idea, butter email crowd, and they like the idea that Donald Trump in the first year he was in office would increase the civilian death toll of drone strikes by 80% over the entire 8 years of the Obama administration. That's right. Out of 8 years of Obama, the civilians that were killed in drone strikes, allegedly and for real, in all the war zones that America was involved in during those 8 years, the death toll of civilians was 80% higher than those 8 years in the first year of the Trump administration. Now, when these folks held their nose and didn't vote in these 3 states, and they voted down ticket, but they left President blank because they were like, well, I don't care. Let America burn, or whatever the feeling was. Those 17,000 or 24,000 or whatever it was in each of those states that made that difference, they thought of Donald Trump as sort of an unknown entity. Maybe businesses were going to run this thing. I don't care. How harmless. He's really kind of a Democrat, isn't he? Wasn't he pro-choice a long time ago? And yeah, he's a sexist pig with a history of 27 legit sexual assault allegations chasing him around. But he's better than this lady. So I'm not going to vote. And then the second time around, even though they would have rather had Bernie, or they would have rather had Elizabeth Warren or something like that, they knew who Donald Trump was. They knew what he did. They knew what he was going to do. They knew that the 4 years, the next 4 years would be way worse than the last 4 years because he would be, twice emboldened. He was already full of himself, and now he'd be full of himself with COVID noggin and the inability to create a cogent strategy to deal with any kind of real threat in the country. So, obviously, he lost. He lost because those people were like, I'm not doing that. I'm not making that mistake again. Bless their hearts. And a lot of other people who were Republicans went, I'm not making that mistake again either. And if there's any, ability to right my country, it's not going to be in the hands of Donald Trump because he's a fake billionaire. He's a lunatic. He's a failure. He's done nothing but F up his entire life. He's a fraud, and he's never, ever, ever done anything right. Even The Apprentice was based on the ridiculous notion, how hilarious is it that this guy is telling other people how to be good at business. Basically, The Apprentice and Celebrity Apprentice were punchlines. The whole show's a punchline. He's a loser, right? He's always been a loser, and the joke was that he's a loser. And then somebody went, why don't we put a loser in the White House and let him win and see if that works out? So everybody changed their mind. And that's what happened in the last election. Everybody changed their mind. Because some people drastically because of COVID, other people because they're like, is it always going to be infrastructure week? Some people because he went and got this. He was supposed to pick all the best people, and he picked literally people he thinks are the worst in the world. Everybody he picked, he turned on, and he was like, these are the worst people for the job. You picked them. These are your pick. Jeff Sessions and Tillerson, and everybody sucked, and everybody was terrible, and he knew more than them even before he hired them. It was just a mess. It was ridiculous. It was absurd. And eventually, people wised up to that absurdity, and 2020 was a trouncing, and he lost to a guy who apparently hid in his basement, never had a rally, had 5 circles, and the press showed up, asked him some questions, who beat him, by the way, in all the debates, mopped the floor with him. And that's got to be embarrassing if you're telling everyone in the world that the guy who you're
and nobody
up against
worships him like a deity. It's got to be really embarrassing.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's right. You're beat by a guy who's essentially a management professional, a guy who's been in the House and the Senate, and eventually ended up in the White House because we decided as America to keep giving a promotion to the guy who's always worked here Instead of hiring the president's son, which is the legacy hire of George W. Bush, or letting some other rich dude do a hostile takeover of the country, like some sort of 80s Michael Milken, cash grab, which was the Trump administration. Why don't we just let somebody buy America and run it like they run their company under their brand? Let's let America get folded under the Trump brand, like Facebook and Insta are going to be part of Meta, and or PepsiCo buys Taco Bell and tries to make it make sense. That was what it was. I mean, essentially, that's what we're looking at. That's what the Trump presidency was an example.
I remember when that happened.
Yeah, the Trump president. Yeah, it was a long time ago. I barely remember the Trump administration. It was such a silly time. But that's effectively what it was. We did, like, maybe we were wrong about this whole democracy thing. Maybe we should pass this down father to son. We tried that with George W. Bush. Abject failure. And then we went, well, maybe we should try this whole, like, 80s corporate leveraged buyout version of governing. We'll let Trump effectively, take out a loan because he has no money to get get into the White House, and just put a big Trump logo in front of the White House and on the Capitol and run it under the Trump brand for a little while. And what happened? We started to lose money. And life started firing Americans to the tune of 600,000 employees were lost in a year. It was a terrible plan. And people woke up to it. So last year, in November, people were like, nah. It was a big collective nah. It wasn't a let's go Biden. It was a nah about Donald Trump, and let's go. I'm sorry, I was mistaken. I was being silly. I didn't realize that I was saying you probably
think that's true.
It might be helpful to have someone who knows what's going on to be in this seat, and somebody who's been through a bunch of stuff and isn't going to make a whiplash decision about stuff and understands that things take negotiation in a democracy and you have to talk it out, and he's not afraid to talk it out, and he's not afraid to get people in a room, and that's how it happens. And that's what happened. But that can't happen. Not in Trumpistan. That can't be true. The Apple White followers of the Jim Jones crowd, they can't believe that this isn't just Kool-Aid, magic Kool-Aid that will take us to Rainbow Fairyland. Let's just drink it and see.
Yep.
And so ever since then, they have been having a hell of a time dealing with the fact that they just lost. You just lost. It wasn't a big thing. It wasn't this enormous, rejection of you as a human being, you rando weirdo in the middle of Indiana or Michigan. The nation doesn't hate you. We just don't want to hear your crap anymore. And you were wrong. You were wrong. You were very, very wrong. Deal with it. We're all wrong in life. We all have to deal with it at some point. Now it's your turn.
Can you imagine being as wrong as he is and never having the ability to admit it?
Oh, yeah. Well, but also every time you pass a mirror, knowing full well that, everything you say about yourself is nonsense. I mean, it's saying that you've got, you're the fittest and strongest and smartest and great genetics and all that kind of stuff. And you know in your heart of hearts when you walk by a mirror, you're like, I'm not fooling anyone. So welcome, everybody. By the way, like and subscribe, give a thumbs up and all that kind of stuff. But we didn't get this dude. This story out of Michigan is fascinating to me because the Trumpistan, the QAnons are still around. They're still trying to build a scaffolding on the shoulders of Donald John Trump where they are fighting pedophiles by apparently being them. I don't know if you heard that story. We'll talk about that when we come back. So QAnon clerk steals voting equipment, for America.
Yeah, you got to infiltrate.
And then this recent QAnon dude gets busted for it turns out he has a record, and that record is exactly what you think it is. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. It's okay that you're wrong, maggots and Trumpsters. It's okay. It's all right. 3-card Monty, people fall for it. You welcome back into the fold. Go get vaccinated, and we'll start arguing politics again. Okay, we'll be back after this.